We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. We have Ed back with us as we do most weeks. And Ed, we missed last week, but we're back on track again this week. And it just so happens we have a shit ton to talk about. First thing I want to talk about
We
is,
do.
yeah, there's plenty to talk about. First thing I want to talk about is Ed's TikTok page. It's starting to go a little wild. And I'd like to take credit for that, but I don't think I can. I think it's the content you're doing. But I want people to know how they can find you on TikTok and YouTube and such, because you're offering up a lot of good content.
It's just look for at Holler Troll, HOLLERTROLL.
And
And I subtitle it Reliving the Years.
right, and you tell a lot of great stories. Some people have compared you to Paul Harvey, which is quite a comparison, and I don't disagree. I think it's very similar to that, and of that quality. But you kind of delved off a little more into politics, which we all know here on the Rational Boomer podcast that that's in the forefront of your mind. You just didn't do it as much or specifically in your TikToks. But last couple you have, and people have responded.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that. I mean, I don't want to be exclusively doing that, but when I see something that really impacts me, I did one recently about how I saw interviews on TV with the Trump supporters saying they were fine with him being a dictator, and I find that chills me to the bone. So I had to comment on that, and then also one that's been sitting in the back of my mind for a while, about how people misunderstand the term white privilege. So I wanted to elucidate that a little bit. Both seem to be doing pretty well, spreading like wildfire. So it was the right thing to do. That's why I'm on here, of course, both here and on TikTok, is to share some what I consider wisdom that I've learned over the years, just by, if you bang into the wall often enough, you learn not to bang into walls, and you want to tell people not to do that and how to avoid it, and how to avoid some of the pitfalls that you've run into, or to see examples that you saw of how things were done wrong, that shouldn't be done that way again.
Right.
I consider myself a witness, and then I'm giving testimony to what I've seen and experienced. That's basically what my TikTok is about.
Well, and I tell people to check out your TikTok, and you show up on YouTube as well. Not just because you're a friend and I want to help you out, but you got a great message. You got a great way to deliver that message. People are entertained and informed, and it's well worth checking out. I check it out, and I don't check out that. I usually scroll through TikTok until I find something I can tolerate, and I scroll more than I tolerate. But it's always good to see Ed's TikToks out there, so check it out. Like you said, we've got a lot of shit to talk about. Um, and I don't know which one you want to bring up first. Maybe the Supreme Court and this imminent decision as to whether Donald Trump will be taken off the ballot by way of the 14th Amendment. A lot of people
Well,
listened to that audio and they felt like the Supreme Court was going Donnie's way. What was your thought about it?
yeah, just a couple of observations. It seemed to me that the conservative members of the court, several of them, were almost feeding the counsel for Trump ways to push it. They were almost saying, "Well, what you really meant to say was this," kind of thing, right?
Right, right.
I detected some of that. I was surprised to see that some of the more, quote, liberal members of the court also seem to be looking askance at the idea of taking Trump off the ballot. It made me wonder if they didn't all get together in the cloakroom before all of this came down and said, "Look, this is not a can of worms we want to deal with. We're afraid that there'll be, too much pushback if we decide that states can take him off the ballot. Now, to me, it's a simple matter of common sense. It's almost like with the Second Amendment. Why did they bother to put in the thing about a militia unless they meant it?
Right.
In the same way with the 14th Amendment, Section 3, why did they bother putting in that someone who has been a participant in an insurrection should not be able to serve as an officer, a senator, an elector? They enumerate a number of things, but just because they didn't specifically mention the president, it would just be common sense because let's say the Civil War, Jefferson Davis had run for president after the war.
Right.
Now, that would be insane that you would elect to the presidency of the United States the guy who just led an armed insurrection against it. That's just common sense. So the obvious intent to me, and I'm not a lawyer, thank goodness, almost was, the commonsensical look at this is that these guys wanted to keep someone who participated in an erection, an insurrection.
Well, some of those guys might have been wanting
yes.
to check out the erection aspect.
They might have too, yes. But they obviously wanted to exclude those people, no matter what office that they included, whether it was a judgeship or that was the intent. And anything beyond that, any quibble, any comma, exclamation point, use of a word, something like that, is just quibbling. The intent was there to exclude people who participated in an insurrection against the United States government, to be excluded forever from any sort of influence within that government. That's the intent. And I don't see why there's any argument, period.
Well, and the thing with the Supreme Court, I wonder, I don't know that it's so much they don't have an opinion on this or they can't see the obvious. It's like what you said. They're just too cowardly to wade into this mess. They know it's going to be, like you say, pushback. Either way they go, they're going to get pushback. So that's why I don't know how they're going to make their choice, because if they fine for Donald Trump, normal people are going to be bitching about it and pointing out that they're biased toward Donald Trump. And Donald Trump put them in a horrible position because he went out and said that, the Supreme Court really needs to fine for me in this case. And because I did them a favor, I put them on the court. So now immediately, if they fine for him, they look like they're complicit in this thing. They look like they're biased. But if they go the other way, then the mouth-breathing red meat eaters are going to be at the fucking door. This is something that's always upset me, in that everybody is doing what they're doing in the Supreme Court based on public opinion and not rule of law. And that's supposed to be what's happening with the Supreme Court. The law is the law, regardless of who gets pissed off about it. But we can't even get that in the Supreme Court.
Exactly. If we jump back to the first impeachment of Trump, he was impeached by the House of Representatives, and then the Senate chose not to remove him. We know from Mitt Romney, who has no reason to lie at all, that many Republican senators, surely enough that he could have been convicted, declined to do so because they were scared to death. They were afraid that their family and their families would be targeted by these morons, and they were flat out scared. So they voted to exonerate him rather than to convict based on cowardice. Now Romney says he spends $5,000 a month just for security for he and his family, and that most of these other senators can't afford to do that. Sorry, it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
You're either going to do your job or you're not. And they chose not to, or none of this would be happening. There would be no debate and Trump would have been removed from and never able to run again. And then possibly, having been removed, he could have been charged criminally, not only for the insurrection, but for collusion with Russia, which the Mueller report clearly laid out that there was an avenue to do that. So if only the Republican senators had had the guts to do their job and do what they should have done, none of this would ever have come to the Supreme Court. So that is a failure to act responsibly on the part of the Republican senators is what led to this. In my mind, all those guys should lose their offices, as should anybody who enabled the insurrection, and that's several of the House of Representatives member, and quite frankly, anyone who voted not to certify the election.
Right. Well, the Republicans missed a lot of opportunities to put this rabid dog down. I mean, I look at it like that. You've got a rabid dog that's biting people. You put it down so it doesn't bite any more people. But you're afraid of this rabid dog, so you let him run wild and he just keeps biting more people. And that's exactly what we have with Donald Trump. When he lost the election and he went down to Mar-a-Lago, they should have turned their backs to them and be glad that they were rid of him. But instead, Kevin McCarthy goes down there, embraces him, and they keep pulling him back in the fold. It's a lot like an abused wife who keeps getting back together with her abusive husband because, well, they're married and they're friends and their family, but she keeps suffering the consequences because of it. And I really see it as that they keep hurting themselves by holding on to Donald Trump. And I don't get it for the life of me. Maybe it's some kind of psychosis or something, but they are fucking stuck on this guy no matter how bad he is.
Well, they saw that he wields a certain amount of attraction for a kind of person that supports their party and the success of their party and their individual success, I believe. They will do anything for that.
Yeah.
For some time now, and I don't mean to harp on this, but with Newt Gingrich's idea of purging those who were reasonable and wanted to work with the other side to actually get things done has borne fruit, and there's none of those left. Or very few, and the few that are left are leaving. I mean, we see a very conservative senator who worked very hard to put together a bill that would have relieved what's going on at the border, would have given both Israel and Ukraine funding, worked very hard to put together a bipartisan bill that is the best that will ever be able to be put together. Right. And yet the House of Representatives, because Trump called him up and said, you know, I'll mess with you if you don't get rid of this. And then it bled over to the Senate, which is, once again, they're showing their true yellow streak up their backs when they will not go forward with a bill they created. How cowardly is that?
But now we know there's even more to this fear and the threat, because Ray Lankford, who's one of the architects of the bipartisan bill, he voted against it because he's a fucking coward. And then after the fact, he comes out and he says, by the way, there is a national moderator that called me and said, if we pass a border bill during Biden's administration, I will destroy you completely. Somebody in the fucking media did that. Now, Old Soul and I had a conversation about this. In my mind, that could only mean Hannity because everybody else doesn't have the power.
Hannity, sure.
But she says she disagrees. She says it's Laura Ingraham. And the reason she says that is because she's been more aggressive with threats on TV than Hannity has. I get her point. I get the connection with Hannity to Donald Trump and how close he is and how he was basically an advisor during the presidential administration of Donald Trump's. But Laura Ingraham was problematic too. The point of it is we've got a Republican Party that's being held hostage by Donald Trump and now the fucking right side media. I mean, how tainted does a political party have
Mhm.
to just be done with the motherfuckers?
What about personal integrity for this senator when a media figure calls you up and makes a threat? You don't kowtow. You
No.
go after them. You have a bloody pulpit. You can call a news conference and you can rake them over the coals all day you want to. You can rip their heart out before the public. Fight back. Show a little backbone, for goodness sakes. So, Mr.
Langford?
What I forget his name, the
Ray
senator
Langford. Ray Langford.
Langford. Yeah, I never liked him. I mean, he's way too conservative for me, but at least he was being reasonable and trying to put together something. Now he's lost me forever with that because he's just another Republican coward.
Well, and the thing is that with the Republicans in this uh, border package, this bipartisan border package, you said, and you're absolutely right. This was a deal that I don't. The Democrats must have been desperate to get this money to Ukraine because they gave up everything. It was the most stringent package for
Yeah,
the border that we've ever seen, and like you say, it'll never happen again. And the Republicans fucked up here. They fucked up because they're following the decisions of Donald Trump. Now, I made a comparison, and there's a lot of people who make this mistake. The lawyers for Donald Trump are continually getting sanctioned, and they're continually getting disbarred and all kinds of shit. They're being embarrassed because they look to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump dictates what they say and do, even though they know it's wrong and it's going to make them look foolish. You would think that people in Congress could see that and say, that's not working over there. Why are we allowing Donald Trump to dictate what we do? Because Donald Trump fucks it up every time. So now we find the Republicans in a position where their talking point was that Joe Biden does nothing on the border. So they get a border plan. They get what they want. But Donald Trump has in his mind, I don't want Joe Biden to win. So we're not going to pass the border bill. But Donald Trump doesn't look into the history and he fucks up all the time. So now what he's effectively done is taken their one talking point against Joe Biden and allowing Joe Biden to turn around and shove it in their face, which is going to hurt them badly in the coming 10 months leading up to November. Donald Trump just fucks it up every time, and we should be grateful for that.
Yeah, I will say this about the Democrats: what they need to do, and they need to do it quickly. You'll remember when Trump was running for office, he had surrogates who went out
Right.
and stumped for him. Many of the Fox News people were among them who would go and sell his line. Now, for example, we keep hearing, okay, that Trump closed the border. His policies were better. There was no illegal immigration during the Trump years. And this is all bullshit. Every bit of it is bullshit. In fact, he broke the system, he
Right.
broke it. And that is what has led to all the problems that they're having, which are exaggerated, by the way. But the Democrats have to get out there and enumerate exactly that truth, how he screwed it up, how he killed thousands and thousands of people with his treatment of COVID. And they need to get on this. They need to hammer it away every day. And the media is not going to do it because we have a corporate media now that is not in Biden's corner. They are
No.
simply not. We have an attorney general who is not in Biden's corner, which, technically he should not be. He should be independent. But the fact of the matter is, Meritt Garland has been a huge disappointment in how he has dealt with all of this, dragging his feet forever before he appointed Jack Smith. We could have been done with this long ago if he had gone ahead and right away put in a special prosecutor to deal with Trump. But no, he couldn't do that. He had to drag his feet. And now we're up against the clock, and we have a judge in Florida who's trying her best to make sure that that case never makes it to trial. We have those in Georgia doing everything they can, attacking the district attorney and so forth, to slow that one down. Everywhere we look, it's simply delaying tactics, hoping that Trump will be able to seize the presidency and make it all go away.
Well, the one thing that's been exposed in the last 6, 7 years is our judicial system generally is in a fucking shambles. We've got a Supreme Court, the Supreme Court,
yes,
who is clearly corrupt, clearly political, and the opposite of what the Supreme Court should be. We've got federal judges, like you said, Aileen Cannon. She's trying to obstruct this case from being tried. And then we have the DOJ. And I was talking about this recently when Merrick Garland was first appointed. I like Meritt Garland because all I heard about his intelligence, his reasonable mind, his great jurist. He's calm and he handles things. But I got to be honest with you, since he's been in office, I have been absolutely appalled of how he's tentative. He's worried about the court of public opinion. He's not aggressive at all. Like you say, he waited 2 years to even look into Donald Trump, which is outrageous given all the multitudes of crimes we know he's committed. He was fucking asleep at the wheel at that point. He finally got Jack Smith, so things were going. But you're right about Merrick Garland. Is he anybody's friend? Well, he shouldn't be anybody's friend, but he sure seems to work against.
No.
The DOJ does work against the Democrats almost as much as they do the Republicans. I'll give you a couple of case in point. The whole Hunter Biden thing, that was wrapped up, that was figured out. But the special counsel that was appointed by Merrick Garland decides to whip this up more. And I don't care what they do to Hunter Biden. It's all an attempt to hurt Joe Biden. Then we have this thing with the classified documents thing. They said he willfully took the documents, but we aren't going to charge him because of this. But then he decides to go off on this tangent about how he doesn't remember things and all this sort of stuff. To me, that sounds like an insidious fucking Republican talking point or rhetoric or narrative that they throw into it, because there's a lot of that going on in this country. All this bullshit we hear comes from the seed of a Republican Party starting this fucking rumor. I was appalled by that, and I'll tell you this: Joe Biden was pissed off yesterday. If there weren't a bunch of cases against Trump all around, Merrick Garland would be on his ass today. And he will be as soon as he can be, and he should be, because he doesn't understand the job. He could have been a Supreme Court justice. He doesn't get the job of AG.
No, I see, and I'm glad that he's not now, because I don't know that he would have been any better than the ones that got the job.
True.
Based on what I've seen. But you're right. Not only did he appoint the special prosecutor that went after Hunter Biden and blew up the deal they'd already made, but he appointed this guy. And don't ever forget that Meritt Garland is a member of the Federalist Society.
Exactly.
And that's all you really need to know. I mean, he was Obama's choice because Obama wanted to be able to appoint a Supreme Court justice that would basically be able to clear both parties. So he knew that he would appeal to a certain extent to the Republicans because of the things like being part of the Federalist Society. But that did not make him a friend of the Democrats by any means. I have to credit, and I don't mean credit, I have to blame Mitch McConnell for a masterful manipulation in that he was refusing to seat or to bring up for a vote Obama's recommendations for judgeships.
Right.
And finally, the Speaker of the House decided to go with the, quote, nuclear option, where they lowered the threshold of votes needed to seat judges. Well, that also gave, and I assume it was on purpose, If not, it was just a very lucky happenstance that then, when Mitch McConnell became or got the reins and was able to delay the Supreme Court justice and so forth, that he was able to use that reduced threshold to put three people who should not be on the Supreme Court in.
Right.
And that's unfortunate that the Democratic Party was played that way, but they were. And we now have not only the Supreme Court, but we have hundreds of judges that Trump put in that are really nothing but party operatives. We see that with Aileen Cannon. That's all she is a party operative. And we see that with these special prosecutors. They are also that. There was no there with the Joe Biden documents. Everybody knew that going in. It was inadvertent and not done on purpose. And as soon as it was found, he immediately gave everything back, apologized, and so forth, even though he didn't even know most of the stuff was there, from what we understand. But it's your estimation is exactly right. The judiciary in this country has lost its legitimacy, and it's lost it because people have been appointed who should not have been. They're not judge material. They're simply partisan hacks, and that includes the Supreme Court, and it includes most of the federal judgeships that Trump supported.
Right. Well,
appointed.
One of the things I heard about this release of this report by this special counsel, the excuse they're saying is, well, he put it out because and made it public because he was afraid that the Republicans would say, "Oh, you're going easy on Joe Biden, and you were so tough on Trump." Once again, it's public opinion that they're most worried about, as opposed to the fucking rule of law. And that's where the problem comes in, and that's why they appear so tainted. I mean, the fact that it was structured the way it was Joe Biden willful in taking these documents? I don't know, maybe. Okay, then take him to task for it. And then they decided not to charge him, and the excuse for not charging him was, well, he's a doddering old man. He'd get by anyway, so we wouldn't win the case. It just seemed like that whole part of it, this opinion of Joe Biden's mental capacity, it seemed to come at a very opportune time and in a very opportune way, and it just seems very suspicious to me. But what's troubling, it comes by way of special counsel who's hired by Meritt Garland. I hate to start conspiracy theories, but the facts are the facts, and that's weird.
Right, and look back a ways. What it reminds me of is Comey coming out a week before the election and saying, we're reopening our case looking at Hillary Clinton's emails. And also Bill Barr coming out ahead of the Mueller report and saying there's nothing here, even though there was plenty there. And the news media then becoming complicit in not delving in and not pushing back against Barr's ridiculous summary. This is what's going on. Once again, we have a corporate media who is, well, number one, they're understaffed and underfunded in most cases. Also, they're not professional. They are there to spout opinion, not to gather facts the way the news media used to be. The news media used to look out the window and see if it was raining, not bring in two people to debate whether or not there was water falling out of the sky. And we need to get back to that.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, when I look at the media right now, there was a time when there was journalism and there was a time when there were news people. But right at this point, I see the news media, and I use that term news in quotes, is nothing more than shit stirs. They don't really care what side win, whichever's going to whip up the most excitement, the most drama. That's what they're going to do. And that's all they do is when they get this information, they do whatever they can to create controversy, create scandal, create drama, because it's money to them. And that's the troubling thing. We've got people that are counting on these folks to provide them the news, and all they are is basically tabloid news at this point, all of them.
Yeah, they're really reality TV. I mean, you can probably remember this when cable first came out. There were all these cable channels. There was Bravo, and there was TLC, which stood for the Learning Channel, and
Right.
there were many others that concentrated on documentaries, the History Channel, and others that concentrated on the best things available. You could turn on Bravo and see opera, ballet, great performances, and that sort of thing. The Learning Channel, you could find out all kinds of things and ways to do things, and the History Channel had real history on it and so forth. And now all of those channels are devoted to reality crap, and the news media has followed suit. They saw that the money was there, so now instead of an hour of the evening news and maybe the Today Show in the morning and 60 Minutes on Sunday, what we have is 24-hour stuff that purports to be news but isn't. It's just
Right.
a bunch of people, talking heads that don't know any more than you or I do. They wrote a book one time maybe, or they used to be a governor or something like that, and we're supposed to take them seriously. They know no more than we do, and they're nothing but really reality TV. And there is no there's no wisdom to be found on television anymore, except in small doses from a few people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the news media figured out quickly that the money is with the lowest common denominator, and those people desperately miss Jerry Springer. I'm sorry to say that, but but
Oh yes.
the vast majority of the people that sit and watch this stuff want this scandal, want this excitement. They want this bombshell announcement. That's why when we watch TV news, every 30 seconds they'll go, breaking news. Now, remember when that meant something
Yeah.
back in the day? We'd sit at home
Yes.
and a page would come on the screen and it said special report, and you knew something fucked up was coming after that. But now everything to them is just this breaking news, and it gets tiresome and it desensitizes people, and it's just they're waiting for the next crazy shit to come along.
Right. I mean, and instead of learning about Project 2025, which is a Republican think tank initiative and Republican organizations coming up ways to install a bunch of Trump loyalists if he is reelected, so that he can have an imperial presidency and send troops into democratically run
Right.
cities and so forth, and call the Insurrection Act to crack down on his enemies and imprison people and try people and so forth. Instead of learning about that, we're learning it's raining in California.
Yeah. 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 It's or what did you think about Joe Biden's response to this claim I mean, let's be honest, Joe Biden's 80 years old. He probably does have some memory lapses.
Yeah.
You're in your 70s, you have memory lapses. I'm in my 60s, I have memory lapses. So the fuck what? You know, it's far different than what we see.
Anyone who watched,
It's far different than what we see
right,
Donald Trump do.
anyone who watches this podcast realizes that I can't always come up with the name of this senator or that
Yeah.
district attorney. I defer to you on that because you still got that part of your gray matter. But that doesn't mean I don't see what's going on.
Right.
I'm sure it's the same with Joe. He may not be able to remember his PIN number. He may have to look at it on occasion or something, but he is able, because of the time he has spent in Washington, and it's been a long time, he knows the ins and outs of the place. He was able to get elected when nobody thought that was possible. Let's face it, there were far more dynamic and personable people than Joe Biden when he was elected, but he knew how to get it done. He knew who to partner with and so forth. And he has been the most effective president of my lifetime, even more so than LBJ and some others. And his guidance has led us through this time after COVID. We have the best economy in the world. We're
Right.
producing more oil than anyone in the world. we're putting more people in jobs than ever before in the history of the country. The stock market is through the roof. This is all happening because of Joe Biden and the way he was able to put together people to get it done. And it would be better if we had held on to the House of Representatives. This country would be in an even better shape than it is. But instead, we have a House of Representatives that does literally nothing except make noise. That's all they do. Just make noise. And that's insane. And now we have a Senate that won't even try to get their own bill passed that they came up with. It's insane.
Yeah, the Republicans continue to step on their own dick. This may sound woo-woo to a lot of people, but I'm a firm believer in destiny. And what am I? I don't know if I call it a rhythm.
No escaping destiny.
but I mean, I look
Young
back.
Frankenstein.
Yeah. I look back at. You can remember Young Frankenstein, but you can't remember Ray Langford.
Yeah.
What the fuck? We need to get on. I tell people, I said, I'm getting old. I'm forgetting stuff. I can remember the 70s like it was yesterday, but I frequently forget to zip my pants coming out of the bathroom. So, and there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. But
yes.
Let's be perfectly honest. When Joe Biden was elected president, he wasn't the optimal candidate. And certainly neither was Donald Trump. I'm a firm believer in destiny and the way things kind of trend. When we were in the 60s, those people that don't remember the 60s, and I was a little young at the time, those were some fucked up times. And we had some similar concerns then and worries about the future of this country in the 60s that we have now. But somehow we found our way out of it. It seemed like it was really bad for a time, and then it kind of peaked, and then it started to turn the other way. And I get that same sense here. I think that Joe Biden was not the optimal candidate, but he was the guy of destiny because he was the one guy, even though he's not optimal in all the other ways, he was the one guy that had the wherewithal to help make the transition we needed to go from the shithole to somewhere near normal again. And I see that kind of playing out here because if you watch what's going on, everybody's worried about Donald Trump becoming the next president. But the Republicans continually fail and embarrass themselves. They have not gotten a win in 2.5, 3 years. They don't really win. They might look at these minor wins as something, but they really don't mean anything. And I just feel the trend of the country is moving the right way. And if we're just patient about it and do the job we need to do, we'll get to where we need to get to, like we did coming out of the 60s or the 40s or the 20s during the Depression. We've had rough times in this country, but we always find our way out.
I agree with you. And I want to caution people, do not listen to polls, whether they're good polls or bad polls. Do not listen to the polls because they are irrelevant anymore. Remember, we were supposed to have a red wave in the midterms and elections, and it didn't show up. But every poll was showing it was coming. Every one of them, they all got it wrong. They'll get it wrong this time because the methodology is failing. You cannot measure the way you used to do it. It used to be they'd call up people and they'd sit there and take their survey and they'd be truthful and so forth. You can't do that anymore. Number one, most people don't have landlines, and the people who do are 89 years old, and they're not necessarily even going to be able to know what's going on. I can say that because I'm old. But
they want you to believe that they want you to believe that they want you to believe polls are the scientific data that is a tool to determine what is going to come. I'll agree that they're a tool,
right?
But I think they're just a tool for the media to do what I said before: stir the shit. Like we've all these people saying, "Oh, Donald Trump's going to win. He's going to win." And then when that got to be too much, then Quinnipiac comes out and says, "Oh no, Joe Biden's going to win." And it's just like they're trying to stir this shit up. They're not trying to inform you. They're trying to whip you up So that's why you've got to ignore the good and the bad, because it's really not based on truth. It's based on trying to incite you.
Yeah, and I used to in between radio jobs, I used to, and I think you did too, used to do surveys and so forth. And we know how you can actually manipulate people with the way you ask a question.
Yeah,
It's what you're trying to do, and that happens all the time in polls. You get the result you're looking for half the time.
right. Yeah, the polls are simply pointless. They've never been really good. There's always limitations to them, and they can all be corrupted and frequently are. I mean, maybe not so much in the early days, but nowadays, I would say most every poll is tainted one way or another.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I don't know how we get back to the place um, where we can look at the news media and find trust. Right now, there are certain people that I go to and hear what they have to say, but I often find fault with pretty much everyone I
Yeah,
listen to,
I do
whether
too.
they're I always find fault with Fox and most of the conservative pundits and so forth because they quite simply lie.
Yeah,
They they all do it. Everybody on Fox is a big fat liar. That's all they do. They're pushing a line. They and often I see that with polls, it looks like they know the result they want and they go for it, and they will keep going until they get it. And it looks scientific, but it's not. And even if they do get a result that looks positive for the other guy, they'll try to find a way to skew it. So
right.
no, you cannot. All you're getting is opinion on from the media, even on the evening news. I see it all the time. I used to do this. I
Yeah.
know how when I used to put together a newscast, we used AP and a few other sources, and I would change words all the time because I saw them as leading,
Right.
giving a certain opinion just by the words used rather than telling the facts.
Right. Right. It's a sad state of affairs, and it's one of the biggest problems we have in this country. If you have a bunch of people looking to vote and they're all misinformed, it can't go well. It just can't go well, and
No,
that's what's happening.
most people vote their prejudices. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Um, I do see a lot more intellect on the left. I just do. And it's always been that way. Um, the truth skews left. It
Yeah.
always has because we look for the truth. Republicans and conservatives in general uh, try to create a reality that agrees with their prejudices, and
Well,
that is exactly what happens.
I think the difference between Democrats and Republicans, and this is generalizing, but I don't give a fuck. It's my show. I think Republicans
Yeah,
are in a mindset where what do I get? What do I need? It's all self-serving, and Democrats tend to be more empathetic about other people. And that to me is essentially the difference of Republicans and Democrats. One is all for themselves, and the other sees the need to be there for other people. And it's not hard to make that choice if you're a normal, fucking compassionate human being.
yeah. I tell people I was fortunate that I was born into the lower middle class, the very lower middle class, so I could look around and I could see where society was screwed up. I could see how people were kept down, weren't allowed to advance. And I'm talking both black and white,
Right.
black more than white, but certainly a certain class, the class I was born into, the former sharecroppers who did the work for the moneyed people. I saw how that was maintained. So, yeah, I've been against that my whole life out of pure self interest. And out of my self interest also grew an empathy for the underdog all around, not only this country, but in other countries. And I saw how this country was. I learned the history of how we stole this country murdered the inhabitants, and then enslaved a whole other group of people, and tried to keep them that way even after they were set free.
Right.
So, yeah, I've seen this. I know what it is, and I know the people who did it and still want to do it, who want to turn back that clock so that they can still do anything they want to do, and everybody else just has to get by with the leavings that they give them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ed, let's take a quick break. We got more to talk about, but we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Ed joins us today. We've got a robust conversation. And while we were taking a break, Ed, I saw something on TV. We were talking earlier about this special counsel Hers report regarding Joe Biden and the fact that he willfully held these classified documents. And then he went off on a tangent about Joe Biden's memory. And Joe came back and he clapped back as you would, and Joe was tough about it. But as we were on the break, I turned on the TV sound and I saw Kamala Harris stand up. And I got to tell you, Joe can be a tough guy, but I would not fuck with Kamala Harris. And she was very angry about it. And she said the quiet things out loud. The fact that we have a special counsel, we should expect more integrity. And this is without question politically motivated. That's a pretty strong thing to say about a special counsel who was hired by Merrick Garland, Joe Biden's attorney general. And I think this is good because Kamala needs to start coming out and being strong and showing what she can do.
Absolutely, because that is one thing that people need to feel good about, that if something, because of Joe's age, if something were to happen to him, I mean, he's one COVID infection away from not being in the Oval Office anymore.
Right.
So is Trump, for that matter.
Right.
But we need to have confidence that she can step up and do the job. I do. I have always felt that way from the very beginning. Now, the person who should be doing what Kamala just did is Merrick Garland. He should be saying, wait a minute, this is not what you were hired to do. You were hired to decide if there was a crime here. You decided there wasn't. You shut your mouth. You've got no reason to be saying this. Number one, you're projecting that a jury would come up with that idea that this is a feeble old man who can't remember stuff. That's pure projection. There is nothing, there is no room for that in his report. None. And Merrick Garland should be calling him on the carpet for that very statement.
Especially if it's politically motivated and especially if it's exaggerated or just not true.
Yes.
And when it comes from the mouths of Republicans, you can almost be certain that it's not true. At the very least, certainly exaggerated. I agree with you about Kamala. I thought Kamala was a good candidate back in 2015 when she was in the primaries. I mean, I think she's younger and she needs to be polished a little bit, but I think she's getting to that point. I would have no problem at all with Kamala taking over at any point. I think there's a lot of people in this country would have a problem with a black woman being a president. I don't personally have any issue with it at all, but that may be where we're headed. Because, like you say, at 80 years old, he's a COVID infection or a COVID virus or a fall away from just being completely incapacitated. And that's why Joe's not an optimal candidate, because he's just not.
So am I.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, all of us are. But I saw something, and I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about the media. Just before, right after Kamala spoke on this little report, the moderator comes out, and this is MSNBC, and they and the little tagline that they say to get people excited, and it's regarding this whole dust up about about Joe's memory and what the special counsel did. This is what she says. Can they recover from the fallout of this report? Fuck are you talking about? Can they recover? Like this is a paramount
Yeah,
problem. It's not a paramount problem. We know what happens in this country. Something else happens tomorrow, and everything else that happened yesterday, they fucking forgot about. So don't give us this bullshit. Can they recover? It's like watching one of those old serials back in the day and have that hook at the end to keep you hooked till next week to listen. That's the
sure.
fucking game they're playing.
Absolutely, it is. Now, when Biden was looking for a vice presidential candidate, I actually was pulling for Amy Klobuchar because I knew her. I'd met her a few times personally, and I had a great deal of confidence in her. I still do.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
she would have made a much better attorney general, as a matter of fact. And I'm hoping that when Biden is reelected handily, that he will make some changes. That's not unusual. And one of the first things he should do is boot Merrick Garland and put in Amy Klobuchar. That's what I'm hoping for,
Yeah.
or anybody for that matter besides Merrick Garland.
Well, Amy Klobuchar is one of our Minnesota homies. She's a Minnesota girl. In fact, my wife told me one
Yeah,
time when she was partying back in college with some friends of hers, Amy was friends of hers, and she even said back then in college, she was drinking beer or whatever. She was a pretty sharp woman, and Amy's been in Congress long enough where she's a pretty well seasoned, knowledgeable, solid politician, and she's honest and decent. So she probably would be a great choice for AG. I hadn't thought about her, but now that you mention it, I can't think of anybody that would be better.
yeah, and I'm hoping that does transpire. Both that Joe is reelected handily, that he brings the House along with him and retains control of the Senate. We're getting rid of Joe Manchin, so that's a good thing. Even though I'm sure he'll be replaced by a Republican, but if we could pick up a few more, I mean, surely to goodness, somebody by now has seen that Ted Cruz is a waste of space. And there are others, Johnson and Scott and different ones that should actually be thrown out.
Right, right.
And I'm hoping if we could do that, then we can turn our attention to the Supreme Court, which really must be done at some point.
Well, Rick Scott down in Florida, he's got some, I think it's Rick Scott. Rick's
Yeah,
got some problems in the
yeah,
offing because remember the FBI has his phone, and we haven't heard what the outcome from that
right.
phone is. But if they've got his phone and then they got the okay to inspect it, that's not going to play out well for Rick Scott. Now, I'd heard somebody say that maybe DeSantis would run for Rick Scott's spot, which I hope he does because he doesn't have a prayer to win. Ron DeSantis is so fucking tainted, so destroyed. His political career is virtually over as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you 1,000%, as it should be. I'm hoping that there's some pushback in Florida now starting because he's such a barnacle that they need to scrape him away and start over. I'm sure that Disney is going to crush him eventually anyway. I'm still looking forward to that. But there are a number of Republicans who need to be taken out of the picture legitimately by the voters. And he is certainly one of them. There's a number of congressmen that I'm hoping that eventually Jack Smith will indict. There
Yeah,
certainly should be indicted. They were certainly just as much a part of the insurrection as Trump was, maybe more so, really, when you get right down to it. I mean, the actual nuts and bolts of it.
right.
And I think we have, just jumping back to Merrick Garland for 1 minute,
Sure.
I really believe if it had not been for the January 6th committee finding out everything they did and basically forcing it down his throat, he would never have appointed a special prosecutor. I
I
think he
agree.
would have sat on his hands forever, forever. Yeah,
Well, not only the January
he
6th
needs to
committee,
go.
specifically Cassidy Hutchinson. She's the one that put the pressure for him to fucking do something. And then he
Yes,
had to do it. He probably hated the fact that he had to do something.
exactly.
I mean, what Merrick Garland was doing about January 6th and President Trump is what Washington has done for years. They've swept things under the carpet because they don't want to cause a kerfuffle or a ruffle or whatever you want to call it. They just wanted to keep things going smooth and easy. The problem Merrick Garland had is that we're in a time when everybody fucking knows everything. You can't sweep anything under the carpet. He wanted to go old school on it, but he couldn't because this fucking evidence and this information kept pouring on the top of him, and he had no clue what to do.
Right. Now, the judiciary, all aspects of it are screwed up. And
Right.
that really includes the Justice Department. I'm sure there are people below him that are very good people and should be there, career DOJ employees who are just chomping at the bit to get stuff done. But no, he's not letting them do it. And I think that a proper attorney general would kind of release the hounds, so to
Right.
speak,
Absolutely.
because there's a lot that could be done. It's like we saw with the IRS, right? Chronically underfunded until Biden got in office and gave them some money. What do? They go in and they bust billionaires all over the place. Microsoft has to come up with like 200 and some $billion that they had not paid. I mean, this is what we need to do. We need to fund these agencies and let them do their job. That includes the Department of Justice, the IRS, the friggin' post office. I just saw a friend of mine put up that they were having to pay a penalty because of a late payment because it took 8 days to arrive. Remember when you could mail something and get it in 3 days max?
Right.
Now it's stretched to a week or more.
Yeah, it's a
So there's a problem with these agencies being underfunded, and the Republicans love doing that.
well, over and above being underfunded, we have another problem with the post office, with the DOJ, that we still have the cancerous Republican Trumplafucks still infesting those departments. I don't know why they can't be cleaned out. I know there's
Yes,
some reason with the post office and the leader there that they have to be kicked out by the committee and Joe Biden's hands are tied. This is fucking ridiculous. We've got people trying to undermine the departments and also undermine the country, and they continue to get to work there and make a lot of money to fuck things up. That's a problem that needs to be addressed. And if we have to break some rule to get them out of there, I would say do it because we're in a crisis situation in all these departments who just aren't doing the fucking jobs they're supposed to be doing.
absolutely. As I understand it, with the post office, it's the board of governors.
Right.
It has to be half Republican, half Democrat, and one of the Democrats is a Quisling. I mean, he's really an undercover Republican, and he's blocking getting rid of DeJoy, the Postmaster General.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that can be done unless Congress stood up and said, "Let's change this shit." I think they could probably do that, don't you?
Absolutely. And this is why I've said it's disappointing to say this. There's a lot of things that need to be changed. There's a lot of things that we need to fix. And you can go to Congress today and say, we need to fix this, we need to fix that. But just because of the obstructionist nature of the Republican Party, we almost have to resign ourselves to the fact that between now and January 20th of 2025, ain't shit getting done. I mean, absolutely nothing's getting done except bare bones shit like putting another continuing resolution to keep the government open. Other than that, they aren't going to accomplish anything because anything that happens that's positive, the Republicans perceive that as a win for Joe Biden, and they'd rather take responsibility for doing nothing than give Joe Biden a win. So in the end, the people who pay the price are us because we've got a Congress that accomplishes nothing. And the only way this gets fixed, the only way this gets fixed is if Democrats take control of the Senate and the House, and Joe Biden or whoever the president is a Democrat, and we can start to fix things. Long as Republicans have any power at all, they will be there to throw up hurdles, cause delays, and fuck up possibilities. I mean, we have to resign ourselves to the fact that nothing right now is going to get fixed. It's all about the election. So let's focus on the election and let them fuck off.
Right, and it's become a continual election. I mean, this
Right,
election started much earlier than any election ever in the history of this country
right,
because Trump had to do it. He wanted to. He really had to stop these court cases, and he thought by running for president again he could do that.
right,
Now you look at the border here, and you have. I'm hoping that there is some critical thinking left that most people still have a little bit of it so that they can look and see. For years now, the Republicans have been screaming, fentanyl's coming across the border and killing everybody, and these guys are rapists and they're abducting women, and all of this stuff is going on. And now they're saying, it's okay. We'll let that go on for another year until Trump gets in office, and then he can stop it. That's what they're saying. We're going to let thousands of people die from fentanyl poisoning. We're going to let thousands of women be abducted and raped and killed, and we're going to and all of these migrants are going to come in, and we're going to have to feed them and all of this, and we're going to let that go on for a year because we don't want to give Biden a win.
right,
Is
right.
that insane?
It's it's
Yes, it's
it's
insane.
abs it's absolutely insane, and that's the messaging the Democrats have to go with. They were crying and whining about the border. They talked about the horrors of the border, and when it came down to it, Republicans chose not to do anything. Joe Biden, Democrats were willing to bend and do whatever they have to do, and Republicans chose not to. Again, the Republicans are looking for anything and everything to discount or discredit Joe Biden. They want to say that he is corrupt financially with Hunter Biden. Found nothing. So they really don't have that messaging. So the border thing was a hotbed of excitement by the Republican Party. Oh, we're so scared. They had that as a talking point. But because of Donald Trump, they've lost that talking point now. So what are they going to argue against um, coming up to the 2024 election? I have a theory. They know Donald Trump is a shit show. They know Donald Trump is going to lose. But their greatest fear is if Donald Trump is not the nominee, all of Donald Trump's supporters just will not vote, and that will destroy the down ballot for them. They're sacrificing Donald Trump because anybody with any sense knows he can't win. But if his people don't turn out, then every senator, congressman, legislator, governor is going to take the hit for it. And I really believe that's why they're holding on to Donald Trump.
Absolutely, because and the lie, if you go back, here they were saying, okay, the Democrats rigged the election and Donald Trump should have won, but I was on the same ballot and I won, but I'm legitimate. That's insane. Republicans are insane. People who vote for Republicans are insane.
Everything they say is insane. Everything they say makes no sense. It's like when my sons were really little and they would come up and tell me a lie. And it would be so fucking
Yeah.
absurd that I could break down in 2 seconds. And I would, and I'd straighten them out. And thankfully, after all these years, they become much better liars. So I got that out of them. But the point
There's
what?
really good parenting there.
Yeah, there you go. But the Republicans not only are liars, but they're like children, just stupid lies that can be easily found
Yes.
out. And then they said, no, that's not true. They're just like incorrigible children. They're just like petulant children. And And I can't imagine why anybody wants to get behind that kind of leadership. I mean, it's a sure fail.
Well, you look at the people they choose, look at their leaders. Here you have Mike Johnson. I mean, this guy is a dyed in the wool. Um, I mean, he probably, no, I won't say that, but I mean, I'm sure that he loves the TV program or the Handmaid's Tale because he thinks that's the way it should be. He thinks it's an instruction manual. This is the kind of guy Mike Johnson is. He is he is a true believer. That's all he is. I mean, anybody who says my governing is straight out of the Bible is an idiot. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it just doesn't work.
Well,
It's not. I mean, there is a separation of church and state. It was put there for a reason, and the reason was it's always led to tyranny, murder, and destruction when you mix religion and politics. Always, every time.
I have to push back a little bit. Mike Johnson was the fourth choice for Speaker of the House. He deserves a certain amount of respect commensurate with his position. But now that you bring up Mike Johnson is not unlike Donald Trump, where he fails at every turn. I'm going to impeach Alejandro
Every turn.
Mayorkas. Apparently, he doesn't know how to count because he
Oops.
failed.
Right.
Then he says, okay, we're going to put an independent, standalone Israeli funding package, and that fails. I mean, Nancy Pelosi would have never done that. If she thought it were close or she would lose,
No.
she would never bring it to the floor. So either this fucking guy doesn't understand that rule or doesn't know how to count because he got made to look like a fool twice in one day. And
I'm not sure he's going to be around Monday.
No, we don't
Really,
know.
I'm not sure he's going to survive this.
And who do
Which
they?
would be fine with me, but I mean, well, we know who it won't be because they wouldn't do Scalise, they wouldn't do Jim Jordan. I don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe.
Well. Here's the
Speaker
thing.
of the House.
Yeah.
Talk about a shit show.
That would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. But Steve Scalise, you bring up a good point. One of the reasons they feel like the Mayorkas thing didn't pass because Steve Scalise was getting stem cell treatments, the one he voted against, to try to save his life. Now this guy has cancer,
Yeah.
and people say to me, Mike, you take joy in other people's misfortune, and typically that's not the case, but. Honestly, with his behavior the past 7 years, if Steve Scalise has cancer, I hope it goes badly for him. I really fucking do. You reap what you sow. You can call it karma. You can call it whatever you want, but bad things happen to bad people ultimately. Um, Now,
we certainly hope so.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hold out hope for that the bad people is the one that the bad things happen to. Unfortunately, I
No, it's not
often see
always the
pretty
case.
bad things happening to good people. I gotta say though, whatever powers there may be, hate Steve Scalise because out of all the congressmen participating in a baseball game, he's the one who got shot.
Yeah.
Now he's got cancer. Somebody don't like him.
And you would think after going through this shit, Steve Scalise might say, maybe I should change things up. But he's just gotten more fervently Donald Trump. And, I don't know. It's maybe like what we were talking about before. They're so hungry for the money and the notoriety and the support from the toothless, red meat eating pieces of shit that they will do absolutely anything. I mean, these people do not have any integrity. Somebody said that Steve Scalise is coming back next week and they may try the Mayorkas thing again. But but it doesn't really matter because it would never get through the Senate. It's just all ridiculous. It's just all performative. And that's
Right.
what and that's
This is what they have.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they want to go home and say, look, I led the charge against the bad people or something. But in the meanwhile, they're not doing anything for their constituents to help their constituents, except the really rich ones. Now they're definitely working for those guys
Yeah.
and gals, I suppose. They are really working for the 1% all day, every day. But for uh, regular Americans, especially the Republicans who vote for them, the Joe Sixpack and Joe the plumber type of people, they're doing nothing for these people. As a matter of fact, um, the Trump tax bill that they all voted for and made sure passed, it's sticking it to the middle class. Beginning this year, our taxes will go up every 2 years for the next 10 years because that's in the Trump tax bill that can only be repealed if Joe Biden gets the House and the Senate.
Right.
That alone is enough reason to vote for Joe Biden because your taxes will go down if Joe Biden becomes president and he has the House and Senate because he can change that. Otherwise, all of those quote tax breaks that were given under the Trump tax cut for the corporations and the rich people stay right where they are. Ours go up.
Well, and that's one of the things Republicans will say. Well, if it's so bad, why hasn't Joe Biden changed it? As if Joe Biden is a king. Joe Biden did try to change it, but he got no help
Right.
from the Republicans. Republicans were more
Yeah.
than happy to watch the middle class's
Right.
taxes go up every fucking 2 years. And how, when you talk
Right.
about the House of Representatives and the Republicans doing nothing and taxes going up to the middle class. Do the rank and file Republicans who vote, do they understand that? Do they realize that? Or are they so
No.
oblivious that they
No.
blame Joe Biden for everything and they don't see what their own people have or haven't done for them?
Well, they only watch Fox News or OAN or some other ridiculous online thing that lies to them and tells them that Republicans are better for the economy, which they never are. Not ever. Never in the history of this country have the Republicans been good for the economy. They were in power when the Great Depression came along. They were in power when the Great Recession came along. They put trickle down in that hurt everybody except rich people, and they start wars and cut taxes at the same time, and explode the deficit. And Trump wanted to raise the national debt more than all the other presidents combined. This is what the Republicans do, but in the popular mind, Republicans are good with the economy because people do not pay attention. They just don't, and they have no talk about Biden's memory. You should be able to remember interest rates through the roof, much higher than they ever got recently. Back in the 70s, late 70s, and so forth. I mean, mortgages were at 12, 13, 14%. People
Yeah.
don't remember that, but they were. And everybody, 30% of my 401k disappeared overnight because of George Bush's wars and tax cuts and for the rich people and letting um, the letting Wall Street go wild and put together worthless pieces of paper that destroyed the economy. All of that, people do not pay attention, and it's insane that they don't.
Well, it's proof positive that if you just keep saying something over and over again, a certain faction of people will believe it. Republicans are good for the economy. I can sit and talk to somebody who's really not that in depth, has that much knowledge about politics. They will say to me, Republicans are better for the economy. And this isn't somebody who's a rampant Trumplafuck. And the only reason they say that is because they've heard it over and over again. So they assume
Right.
it's real. These people don't take the time to really look into it. They trust people they should not trust. So it's interesting that that tactic works, and it has worked for decades, we're good for this, we're good for that. But when you go back over each of the administrations, there's nothing but failings for the Republicans every fucking time. Every time in our recent lives that the economy has been the lowest part is always at the end of a Republican term. And then the Democrats pull it back, but somehow
Right.
the Democrats are bad for the economy.
Right, and it's also for national security. I mean, World War One won by President Wilson. I mean,
Right.
Wilson was in the White House, a Democrat. I have lots of problems with Wilson, but World War One was successful. He was the president. World War Two, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's president. We win. Korea, Truman's president. We fight to a standstill. We essentially won. Okay, Vietnam, not so good. I mean, we start off with Johnson. He can't be reelected. Nixon accelerates everything, and we have to cut and run. Same thing, and then with the Gulf War, initial success was George Bush the senior. Then George W. Jr. wants to do his dad one better and comes in and totally fucks up the Middle East for the next 30 years. And goes into Iraq and Afghanistan. He goes into Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11. He goes into Afghanistan, where Osama bin Laden isn't. He's over in Pakistan. He's been there the whole time. That's national security. Those are Republican successes of national security. Right.
And it was the Democrats
All
and
they do is get a
Obama,
lot of young people killed.
and it was Democrats and Obama who actually tracked down and killed fucking Osama bin Laden, in spite of all the tough
Exactly.
talk from the Republicans. And now we have, you know, this bipartisan border bill. I think the main reason that the Democrats cut this deal is because they're very concerned about Ukraine, and they should be. Why Republicans aren't concerned
Yeah.
about helping Ukraine is just because Republican leaders have said, no, that's not good. And then they uh, try to suggest why it's not good. But not funding Ukraine is a bad thing on a worldwide scale because we know Vladimir Putin, if he gets through Ukraine, he'll keep
Yes.
going. He'll eventually hit a NATO country. Now we've got a world war because we've got multiple countries involved. It's as simple as that. We are better to stop the infection before it spreads fucking everywhere. That seems to be very simple to understand, but for whatever reason, Republicans can understand that. And I think the thing is with Republicans, it's more about money and about owning the libtards than really protecting what we have in this country and across the world. And that is disconcerting to say the least.
There's that, and it may even be more insidious than that. I think the Republican Party in the United States is dependent on money from Russia in large part, funneled through the NRA and other organizations. But
Sure.
it's Russian money that they're using. A lot of them are. I mean, Mitch McConnell, all of these people, they're getting money from other countries that do not have our best interest at heart, for sure. And also, an oligarch is an oligarch is an oligarch. There's not much difference between Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and the oligarchs in Russia. It's all
Right.
about the money. It's all about keeping the little guy down, making him a slave to work for them. They're all in collusion to a certain extent. If it's not direct, it's indirect because they all have the same self-interest. So yeah, it's and once more I must reference Project 2025, which is this plan put together by the Republican, the conservative think tanks and organizations that would create this imperial presidency. One of the things on their agenda is a 30% national sales tax, which of course means nothing to billionaires, but it means everything to you and me. Plus, they want to again raise taxes. I think it's 14% on the middle class and cut taxes on the rich folks. So that's all part of Project 2025. It's online. Look it up. You can go read it, and you'll see that I'm not lying.
Somebody wanted me to dedicate a show to Project 2025, and I'm of a mind that Project 2025 is just a paper written by an idiot. And as long as we do our job and don't let the Republicans come back into power, that Project 2025 is basically toilet paper. Because once the Republicans lose in 2024, they're going to have to abandon all the bullshit that's obviously cost them election after election. I don't see Project 2025 as a real threat yet. I mean, granted, if it looks like Donald Trump is going to be president, I just don't see any path for him to win. Then we'd have to worry about 2025. But I'm always afraid to bring up 2025 because it goes against what I try to do with the Rational Boomer podcast. I mean, it's not that I don't want to mention it. I just don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's doing what the media does. It's creating this fear unnecessarily. I think it's unnecessary by saying, "Oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do this," and scare people with this. And I think it's something that's not a thing, and it's not going to happen because of the way everything is occurring and the fact that the Republicans are losing. The only way 2025 is a thing is if Republicans get power in 2024, and they're not.
Well, I agree with you 1,000%, but I do think why I keep bringing it up and directing people's attention to it is this is their intention.
Right,
This
right.
is what the Republicans want to do in their heart of hearts. And the fact that that they put it out there for anybody to see shows a certain arrogance on their part. And that being the case, I want to wake people up and make sure you get your ass to the polls
Right.
and vote blue, 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 blue. Everybody, do not be complacent. Do not assume that we can win without making sure that everybody you know of a like mind gets to the polls and votes blue.
Well, when I look at Project 2025, I think of an old cliche that you hear all the time these days. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And that Project 2025 is who
Believe
the
them.
Republican
Yeah.
Party is. It's fucking amazing. I want to talk about the upcoming election in 2024 because we really don't know what's going to happen. We got Donald Trump as the nominee. For the life of me, I don't believe Donald Trump makes it to the nomination because of, I mean, if you see him on stage now, you talk about Joe Biden being diminished. Donald Trump doesn't look well. He doesn't sound cognizant. He's in trouble, and the pressure has just started. You don't get to 78 years of age, be in ill health, and then have 91 felony charges. And when Engeron comes out and takes all his money, I think that's going to be too much for him. He may not get out of the race, but he's going to be diminished as time goes on. So everybody's looking to Nikki Haley. And I'll get Democrats coming to me and saying, well, I'll agree with you. I think Biden will beat Donald Trump, but I don't think he'll win against Nikki Haley. The fuck are you talking about? Nikki Haley is a horrible candidate. She just ran against nobody else but the choice of nobody on this list, and she lost uh, in Nevada. Nikki Haley's not a good candidate.
Yeah.
And people say, well, she seems more normal. Yeah, normal against Donald fucking Trump. She's a little more polished. She's not as
Jack the
stupid.
Ripper looks no. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. She,
I look handsome as fuck next to an ogre. So, it's but
well, it depends on the ogre.
well, yeah, true, true. If the ogre's in shape, but Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley wouldn't be a serious candidate if people didn't believe Donald Trump was in trouble.
No.
She's strictly there hoping against hope that he keels over or drops out or something. That's the only way she
Please
can win.
let him die.
Yeah.
Please let him die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's her strategy. Let him die. Let him die.
But my question is, if Donald Trump holds on, and I kind of do hope he holds on, because the longer he holds on, the less time the Republicans have to mount any charge in the 2024 election. That's why I hope I kind of hope the 14th, it'd be nice if the 14th Amendment thing comes down, he's taken off the ballot, he's out of the mix. But I think in some regards, it just gives the Republicans more time to put up an actual fight in 2024. I'd rather have Donald Trump continue to drag him down to the last minute. But Nikki Haley, people think she's normal. She's not normal. I have to wonder, after the showing in Nevada, which it wasn't a big deal because the Nevada primary caucus is no big deal, but we come up to Super Tuesday and she gets decimated. Can she financially even stay in the race at this point? I mean, can she hold on
I'm
long
surprised
enough?
she's still in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. I wonder if there are some, I wonder if she's not getting some funding from the Democrats just so she's out there running down Trump. I certainly would give her some if I were the DNC. I'd throw some money her way just to keep her out there saying Trump is losing it. I mean, that's worth something, I think, even if, but no, she's not. Let's, if, if Joe Biden decides, which isn't likely, but if he should say, I don't want, I did my term, I got some stuff done, and now I'm going to step aside. I can think of 4 or 5 different candidates who could step right in. Of course, Kamala would be right there. Then you've got Newsom out in California. You got Bashir, is it Bashir in Kentucky, and
Yeah.
others. We've got depth.
Yeah.
Our team has depth. They got nobody.
Right.
I mean, look at who the people they had. They dropped off, boom, 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 because none of them had anything. I mean, no gravitas at all. Nikki Haley was the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And she's not much. I mean, I saw Sununu on Bill Maher a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, well, maybe that guy's got some. Maybe he could step in. He's a doofus.
Yeah. He
I mean,
is.
he's totally a doofus. He's what do they call him when there's a term for it when it's the next generation gets
Yeah.
a move in, gets to move in. I can't think of what it's called right now, but that's all he is. He's just riding his daddy's coattails. That's how he got to be where he is, governor in
Absolutely.
Maine.
If Sununu is the future of the Republican Party, they may as well pack it in, because that's not a good. They don't have a good crop of young Republicans coming up that that are going to take the place of these fucking dinosaur criminals. That's why I'm saying, if we, what do you think happens? 2024 comes and what we say actually happens. Biden wins. Democrats win the House by maybe 30 seats. They hold on to the Senate, maybe even by 2 seats or a seat or whatever it is. Is that the point where the Republican Party says, all right, we're done? We gave it a hell of a run. We failed for 6 years. We got to change things up if we want to survive and deal with the young people of this country. That's what I honestly believe. It's going to take that beating in 2024 for them to finally realize, we're going down the wrong fucking path. We maybe need to change things up. And when they do, it's going to take 5 to 10 years for them to get back to a point where they have any power, because nobody will believe they've changed.
Well, I thought they were done after Nixon, to be honest. And then before you knew it, here came Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't count them out completely because the American people always managed to surprise me with the depths of their stupidity. I'm sorry, I'll
I
say
agree
it.
with you. I agree with you.
Sue me, but yeah, I don't know, but I tend to agree with you because I see nobody on the horizon for them. I see, like I say, we got depth. I can see probably 10 different governors, senators, even some people in the House. I mean, a number of people who worked on the January 6th committee, I see as very possible. presidential candidates, certainly vice presidential candidates at some point, both men and women. I mentioned Amy Klobuchar. She could be a strong presidential candidate, vice presidential candidate. Or there are many others. I see nobody. Who are you going to go? You're going to go with the Texas governor. You're going to go with Ted Cruz. You're going to go with Rick Scott or even Tim Scott. I mean, these people have no real credentials that would lead anybody to vote for them other than that they are, I've been a Republican all my life and I'm going to vote Republican forever. That's all I see, that would let these people get a vote from anybody.
I think if you give Hakeem Jeffries 4 years as Speaker of the House, he may be one of the top candidates in
Bingo.
2028. And I think he would be an excellent president. He's smart,
Yeah.
he's strong, he's tough, he's articulate. And I like the way he talks because it's almost preacher like. It's yes. Almost a rhythm to it.
Yes.
And it's well constructed in his mind. He'll say, if we do this, da 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 da, or this, da da da. He's kind of entrancing the way he talks. I really appreciate that. And I think he's going to be a strong candidate. His time is coming. He's kind of laid low a little bit. Every so often he pops up, but you make him Speaker of the House, that's going to change some things dramatically, not only in the House of Representatives, a change that we so sorely need, but it's really going to raise his stock over the next 4 years.
Absolutely. And I don't know what's going to happen in California, but Katie Porter is also a comer. I really respect her.
Oh, yeah.
I think she has the intellect, probably the best intellect I've seen in politics in 20 years. I hope she becomes senator. If not, I know she'll continue to do an outstanding job in the House, but she needs a bigger podium to speak from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's one other person, we're going to wrap things up, but there's one other person that the Democrats have kind of dropped the ball on, that who may be the best political mind in all the Democratic Party, is Stacey Abrams. She's fallen short in the governor's race and all this stuff. Come 2024, they need to figure out a way to get her in the mix someplace, somewhere, whether it be in the administration or something. But we need to put her in play because she's very strong, very smart, and the future for her is very bright.
I'd like to see her head of DNC, among other things. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of out of the spotlight. She deserves a spotlight. But for sure, her talents are wasted, should not be wasted, because quite frankly, Georgia is Georgia because of Stacey Abrams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it. She's a powerful woman and has done some great things, and she deserves some recognition and just desserts for the future. All right, Eddie, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for stepping in and offering your sage advice. I want to remind people to check out
such as it is.
Yeah, such as it is for both of us. But I want to remind folks to check out Ed on TikTok at Holler Troll, HOLLERTROLL. You're also on YouTube. What else are you on? Where else can they find your videos? You're not on Facebook.
Occasionally I'll throw out a reel or so, but mostly it's TikTok and YouTube right now, although a number of people have been encouraging me to get on Clapper, but I'm not sure what that is.
Clapper, I tried doing that once because the problems with maybe TikTok shutting down. I didn't like Clapper. It just wasn't. I haven't gotten to Threads either. I just haven't.
Yeah.
I deal with
I'm
YouTube.
on there, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I quite frankly, I only have so many hours in a day to deal with this kind of thing, and I can't keep up with all of them.
No.
I mean, most of them languish. Occasionally, I'll get a reminder if something's going on. I might go look at it, but by and large, TikTok is my emphasis right now, and I share the things I do on TikTok on YouTube as well. Also, ad hoc or Reelin, Realin apostrophe, in the years, like a play on the old Reelin in the Years from
Right.
Steely Dan,
Right.
only real is spelled Real. Okay. But anyway,
That's clever.
yeah, all those folks have been all those folks who have been so encouraging. Thank you so much. I hope to acknowledge you in one way or another, but it's hard. I mean, I'm getting 60,000 people now, and that's hard to keep up with sometimes.
Well, eventually you can't keep up with everything, but I just want to encourage folks. Um, Ed's catching fire here. You want to get on the bandwagon and be one of the charter members. So get on that fucking bandwagon. I'm telling you. I'm definitely telling you, you gotta check him out. Well, Ed, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Actually, as people are listening to this, I'm off to Georgia. I'm going to spend some time down there till about Thursday. I'll probably talk to you next Friday from here again because I'll
Good.
be back by Thursday.
All right.
But you have a great week, and we hope things get better in the news. I think we're on the right track, but there's always some fucking pitfalls along the way. For those
You
of you
know it.
listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. Um, I hope you have a great day, and we'll, of course, talk to you again tomorrow.